The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the unervingly perfect lawns of Harmony Creek. It was a subdivision built on the bedrock of conformity, a principle relentlessly upheld by Carol Miller. Carol, president of the Homeowners Association, saw herself as the bulwark against suburban decay. Mid-50s, with a helmet of tightly permed blonde hair that seemed impervious to the humid air, her gaze swept over her domain with unwavering vigilance. Among the residents, though never to her face, she was simply Karen. Her electric golf cart, often heard before it was seen, served as her mobile command center. Its software was a harbinger of potential scrutiny, a signal that someone, somewhere, might have transgressed. A misplaced trash bin, a patch of grass daring to brown under the relentless summer heat. Nothing escaped her notice. Her infamous scorched earth policy on weeds was legendary. Sarah Jensen and her 11-year-old daughter, Lily, were relative newcomers, having sought refuge in Harmony Creek's promised quiet 6 months earlier. They carried the weight of tumultuous years, hoping for simple stability. Sarah worked remotely, her job demanding intense concentration and ironclad confidentiality behind drawn blinds. Lily, meanwhile, was navigating the treacherous currents of middle school while managing the constant, meticulous demands of type 1 diabetes. Lily was a bright spark, resilient despite the daily tightrope walk of her condition. Her insulin pump, a small device clipped discreetly to her waistband, was a constant, visible reminder of the invisible battle waged within her body. It hummed quietly, delivering life-sustaining insulin, a technological marvel that was simply part of her existence. They learned about Carol Miller the hard way. A crisp white notice citing improper seasonal decoration display appeared on their door barely a week after New Year's, reprimanding them for a string of cheerful fairy lights. That was Sarah's introduction to the HOA president's rigid interpretation of the community's covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the thick binder Carol often carried like a shield. Minor warnings followed, seemingly arbitrary and personally aimed. The sunflowers Lily had proudly planted were deemed excessively tall. Their recycling bin was apparently placed 3 inches too far from the curb one Tuesday morning. Each notice, each clipped interaction, left Sarah feeling exposed, judged, and increasingly anxious in her own home. The peace they craved felt fragile, constantly under threat. Carol possessed an uncanny knack for appearing precisely when a perceived infraction was unfolding. She didn't just enforce rules. She seemed to draw a palpable energy from it, a sense of validation derived from correcting the perceived imperfections of others. Her authority, though limited to the realm of lawn maintenance and acceptable mailbox flags, was wielded with the gravity of a monarch. Her voice, sharp and perpetually tinged with impatience, could slice through the thick summer air, halting children mid-laugh or causing adults to instinctively scan their own front yards for violations. In her own mind, she wasn't a petty annoyance. She was the thin line separating Harmony Creek from chaos, a chaos vividly imagined as mismatched garden gnomes or unapproved paint swatches. Her neighbors, whispering behind hands raised to stifle weary sighs, saw only a small-town tyrant ruling a kingdom of identical houses and manicured lawns. The community clubhouse was intended as a shared respite. Its sparkling blue pool offered relief from the oppressive heat, and a small, air-conditioned recreation room provided a space to cool down. Inside, a vending machine hummed, stocked with sodas and snacks, a minor convenience frequently used by kids taking a break from swimming. It was here, on a Tuesday afternoon so hot the asphalt shimmered, that the simmering resentment between Carol's iron fist and the messy reality of everyday life would finally ignite. Lily had spent hours at the pool with Mia and Chloe, splashing and laughing, the sun warm on her skin. But the exertion combined with the intense heat sent her blood sugar tumbling downwards faster than expected. Her continuous glucose monitor, CGM, linked wirelessly to her phone and insulin pump, chirped an urgent alert. A downward arrow flashed on the screen, dropping fast. She knew the feeling well, a slight tremor in her hands, a fuzzy disconnect, the urgent need for sugar. Quick. She also glanced at her pump's display. The battery icon was blinking low. Critically low. Charging it wasn't optional, it was essential. Inside the blessedly cool recreation room, the tile felt slick beneath her damp feet. She fished crumpled dollar bills from her swim bag and bought a cold can of orange soda from the humming machine. The sugary liquid was a familiar lifeline. Spotting an unoccupied electrical outlet near the vending machine, conveniently placed and seemingly forgotten, she didn't hesitate. She slid down to sit on the cool floor, the relief immediate. Pulling the charging cable from her bag, she carefully plugged the USB end into her insulin pump and the other into the wall socket. The small device, no bigger than a pager, immediately displayed a charging icon. Lily took a long, grateful sip of the soda, leaning her head back against the wall. The cold sweetness began to work its magic, easing the shaky feeling, pushing back the fog. Survival first. Everything else could wait. The faint, almost subliminal whir of an approaching electric motor outside didn't register over the thrum of the vending machine and her own focus on feeling better. Not until the recreation room door swung inward with a jarring lack of care. Carol Miller stood framed in the doorway, a silhouette against the blinding afternoon sun. Her eyes, accustomed to scanning for imperfections, instantly locked onto Lily. Her face, habitually set in lines of disapproval, tightened like a fist. "What?" Carol began, her voice sharp, bouncing off the hard surfaces of the small room. "Do you think you are doing?" Lily looked up, startled, the soda can halfway to her lips. "Oh, hi. I'm just charging my pump," she explained, holding up the small, vital device connected by its cord to the wall. The battery was really low. Carol marched further into the room, her sensible orthopedic sandals clicking assertively on the tile. She crossed her arms, a familiar pose of staunch opposition. "You are using HOA electricity." Each word was clipped, precise. "That outlet is designated strictly for the vending machine and authorized maintenance equipment. It is not for personal charging." "But it's my insulin pump." Lily tried again, her voice shrinking under Carol's glare. She could feel Mia and Chloe hovering nervously near the door. "I need it. It keeps me. Well, it gives me insulin." She hated having to explain. "I am perfectly aware of what an insulin pump is," Carol snapped, dismissing Lily's explanation with an impatient flick of her wrist. It was a gesture Sarah had seen before, one that invalidated any perspective but Carol's own. "That fact does not grant you permission to pilfer resources from the homeowners association. Unplug that device." Immediately, her tone left no room for argument. Her stance radiated aggressive certainty. Lily felt a familiar prickle behind her eyes. The lingering effects of the low blood sugar combined with the stress of the confrontation made her feel suddenly dizzy and weak. "Please," she pleaded, her voice trembling slightly. "I just need a few more minutes. My sugar was dropping really fast. I felt awful. I really need this to work right." Carol scoffed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. She took another step closer, looming over the girl sitting vulnerably on the floor. "Dropping." The word dripped with skepticism. "Perhaps if you didn't indulge in sugary drinks constantly, you wouldn't experience these episodes." She gestured dismissively towards the soda can. "It's called personal responsibility, young lady. Managing your choices." Tears threatened to spill. Lily felt trapped, misunderstood, and physically unwell. The accusation stung, a gross misunderstanding of her condition. The stress was making the low blood sugar symptoms worse, amplifying the shakiness. She fumbled with the charger plug at the wall, her fingers clumsy, uncoordinated. "Now," Carol commanded, her voice rising. Lily swallowed hard, trying to steady her hand. "And my pump. Please, just 2 minutes." Carol's patience, a notoriously finite resource, evaporated. "I warned you," she hissed, her face contorted with righteous anger. Reaching into the large, practical tote bag she always carried, the one that usually held her rulebook and citation forms, she pulled out a compact black object. It registered in Lily's panicked mind split seconds before it happened. A stun gun. Before Lily, Mia, or Chloe could fully react, paralyzed by disbelief, Carol aimed the device downwards towards the small girl on the floor and pressed the activation button. A terrifying crackle ripped through the quiet room, followed instantly by Lily's sharp, high-pitched cry of pain and pure shock. The electrical current surged through her small frame. She gasped, her eyes wide with terror, her body convulsing involuntarily. Then, she crumpled sideways onto the cold tile, limp as a rag doll. The soda bottle slipped from her grasp and rolled away, fizzing quietly. Her insulin pump, yanked violently from the charging cord by her collapse, clattered uselessly beside her. The sudden, violent assault, coupled with the physiological shock, sent her already dangerously low blood sugar crashing into catastrophic territory. She began to tremble violently, her skin clammy and pale, her breathing ragged and shallow. Mia and Chloe screamed, raw terror in their voices. Mia bolted outside, shouting incoherently for help, for anyone. Chloe dropped to her knees beside Lily, sobbing, utterly terrified, unsure what to do. Carol stood frozen for a pregnant second, the stun gun still buzzing faintly in her hand. Her expression was a bizarre tableau of fury momentarily eclipsed by dawning, sickening horror. The rigid certainty that fueled her actions fractured, revealing the terrifying reality beneath. She hadn't just enforced a rule. She had assaulted a child, an 11-year-old girl who was already medically vulnerable. Chaos erupted. A neighbor, Mr. Henderson, watering his petunias nearby, heard the screams and rushed in. Seeing Lily on the floor, he immediately dialed 911, his voice urgent. Another woman recognized Lily and frantically punched Sarah Jensen's number into her phone, her hand shaking. Carol, jolted back to a semblance of self-preservation, started stammering justifications, her voice suddenly thin and reedy. She wouldn't comply. She was stealing electricity. HOA property. I told her. The words faltered as her gaze fell upon the pale, trembling child on the floor. The formidable HOA president seemed to shrink, overwhelmed by the enormity of her action. Sarah arrived, tires screeching slightly, just as paramedics were carefully lifting Lily onto a stretcher. The sight of her daughter, ghostly pale, eyes half closed, hooked up to monitors, unleashed a wave of cold, pure fury within Sarah. It was so intense it momentarily silenced the primal fear clawing at her throat. She pushed the rage down, focusing entirely on Lily. Calmly, efficiently, she relayed critical medical information to the EMTs. Lily's T1D, recent blood sugar trends, the known assault. Her voice was steady, professional, betraying only the slightest tremor in her hands. She climbed into the back of the ambulance, settling beside the stretcher, taking Lily's small, cold hand in hers. "It's okay, sweetie," she whispered, stroking Lily's hair, forcing reassurance into her voice she didn't fully feel. "Mommy's here. We're going to the hospital. They'll make you feel better." The ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing them inside. The siren began its piercing wail, cutting through the neighborhood's stunned silence. It left behind a cluster of shocked neighbors, Lily's traumatized friends, and a suddenly diminished Carol Miller being cautiously approached by the first responding police officer. At the hospital, the emergency room buzzed with controlled urgency. The medical team worked swiftly, expertly, to counteract the severe hypoglycemia. The condition was critical, dangerously exacerbated by the physical and emotional shock of the stun gun assault. Sarah remained glued to Lily's side, answering questions, providing history, her mind a whirlwind. The initial wave of maternal panic began to subside, slowly replaced by a different kind of focus. It was a familiar shift, a mental recalibration honed by years of intensive training and high-stakes work. She wasn't just Lily's terrified mother anymore. In this moment, Special Agent Sarah Jensen, the FBI's primary liaison for civil rights cases in the region, took precedence. Once Lily was stabilized, admitted, and resting as comfortably as possible in a quiet pediatric room, Sarah stepped out into the sterile quiet of the hospital corridor. She took a long, slow breath, centering herself, compartmentalizing the mother's fear to allow the agent's clarity to surface. She made 2 phone calls. The first was to her direct supervisor at the FBI field office. Her report was concise, professional, chillingly objective. "Assault on a minor, sir. 11-year-old female, known disability, type 1 diabetes. Weapon involved, stun gun deployed by assailant. Assailant is HOA President, Carol Miller. Significant history of prior harassment documented. Potential bias indicators based on witness statements regarding comments about the victim's disability. Requesting immediate coordination." The second call was to a trusted senior contact within the local police department. She ensured the initial assault report was being processed correctly, acknowledging their jurisdiction, but firmly signaled the FBI's imminent and deep interest in the case due to the civil rights implications. Federal resources were now being mobilized. Back in Harmony Creek, the wheels of local justice had already begun turning. Based on the eyewitness accounts of Mia and Chloe, Mr. Henderson's statement, and the undeniable evidence of the assault, the local police had taken Carol Miller into custody for questioning. She was transported downtown, protesting her innocence, citing HOA bylaws like a desperate prayer. But Sarah knew this transcended a simple state-level assault charge. Carol's deliberate targeting of a child, specifically referencing and mocking her disability, coupled with the use of a weapon to enforce a petty rule about electricity, it painted a disturbing picture. It potentially elevated the crime into the realm of a federal hate crime. Events unfolded rapidly over the next 24 hours. Leveraging her position, her expertise in civil rights violations, and the sheer, unambiguous egregiousness of the incident, Sarah facilitated the swift formation of a joint task force. It comprised FBI agents specializing in hate crimes and civil rights, detectives from the local police department's Major Crimes Unit, and, critically, agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF, brought in due to the stun gun and the potential for other weapons. A federal search warrant for Carol Miller's residence, the meticulously kept house that was the epicenter of her reign, was secured and executed with precision early the next morning. What the task force uncovered inside Carol's impeccably organized, almost sterile home sent a chill down the spines of even the most hardened investigators. They recovered the compact stun gun used on Lily, bagged as evidence. But hidden beneath loose floorboards in her master bedroom closet, wrapped in oilcloth, they found much more. An illegal, high-voltage Taser X26P, far more powerful than the device used at the pool. Several canisters of military-grade OC pepper spray. And, most alarming, an unregistered Glock 19 semi-automatic pistol with 2 fully loaded magazines. Disturbing as the illegal arsenal was, the digital evidence extracted from her laptop, tablet, and recovered personal journals painted an even darker portrait. Carol Miller wasn't merely an overzealous HOA president obsessed with conformity. She was deeply immersed in the toxic sludge of online extremist forums and encrypted chat groups. Her digital footprint was a roadmap of escalating hate. Investigators found lengthy, vitriolic screeds railing against minorities, immigrants, and LGBTQ+ individuals. But a particular, venomous rage was reserved for people with disabilities. She used dehumanizing slurs, referring to them as societal drains, evolutionary weak links, and burdens on the system. Chillingly, there were specific, detailed complaints logged about Lily Jensen. Carol fixated on her diabetes, calling it a fabricated weakness, an excuse for constant special treatment and attention-seeking. She described Lily's insulin pump as an unnecessary accessory flaunted for sympathy. They found saved articles, not just about property rights, but distorted interpretations of stand your ground, laws twisted to justify aggressive action. There were archived chat logs where Carol discussed, with anonymous online compatriots, the need to take back our communities and enforce standards against those who didn't fit their narrow, prejudiced mold. One chilling exchange showed a selfie Carol had sent in a private chat, proudly displaying the hidden compartment containing the Glock, captioned, "Ready to defend property and principles." More damning still were draft emails Carol had composed, intended for the HOA board. She proposed radical new rules clearly designed to marginalize residents with medical needs or physical limitations. These included severe restrictions on necessary home modifications like ramps or grab bars, limitations on parking for handicap placard holders, and even proposals to limit access times to common areas like the pool for anyone requiring assistive devices, a category she explicitly argued should include insulin pumps. The stun gun attack wasn't a spontaneous loss of temper over stolen electricity. It was the culmination of a pattern of escalating hostility, fueled by deep-seated prejudice and validated by an online echo chamber of hate. It was an act rooted in a dangerous ideology. The weight of the evidence was crushing. The initial local assault charges were quickly superseded by a comprehensive federal indictment. Carol Miller, the woman known behind her back as Karen, faced a battery of serious felony charges. Assault resulting in serious bodily injury on a minor, enhanced due to the victim's age and documented disability. Violation of the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, specifically targeting Lily willfully causing bodily injury because of her actual or perceived disability. Unlawful possession of unregistered firearms. Possession of prohibited weapons, the high-voltage taser and military-grade pepper spray. Furthermore, based on the extremist materials, the cache of weapons, the documented targeting of a disabled child, and the evidence suggesting intent to intimidate, the U.S. Attorney's Office took the significant step of adding a domestic terrorism sentencing enhancement consideration to the charges. Their argument was stark. Carol's actions weren't merely a personal vendetta or an isolated assault. They constituted an act intended to intimidate and coerce a civilian population, specifically vulnerable individuals within her community, in furtherance of an ideology of intolerance and exclusion. Bail was vehemently opposed by the prosecution and ultimately denied by the federal magistrate judge. Carol Miller was deemed both a significant flight risk and, more importantly, a clear danger to the community. Stripped of her HOA presidency almost immediately by an emergency board meeting, her meticulously constructed authority vanished overnight. She found herself in a sterile federal detention center, clad in an orange jumpsuit, the reality of her situation finally penetrating her wall of self-righteous denial. Disbelief warred with raw, primal fear as she contemplated the immense power of the federal justice system now arrayed against her. News of the arrest and the shocking details unearthed during the investigation sent waves of disbelief, relief, and collective shame through Harmony Creek. Neighbors exchanged uneasy glances, recalling their own minor run-ins with Carol, the petty citations, the constant feeling of being watched. They had complained, nicknamed her, rolled their eyes, but few had suspected the depth of the darkness festering beneath the surface of her obsessive rule-following. The discovery of the weapons and the extremist ideology forced a grim reassessment. The case inevitably attracted significant media attention. Headlines nationwide seized on the narrative. HOA president charged with hate crime after tasing disabled child, suburban terror, Karen stockpiled weapons, targeted girl with diabetes. It became a national talking point, sparking intense discussions about the potential dangers of unchecked HOA power, the pervasive issue of disability discrimination, and the unsettling reality of extremist hate incubating in seemingly ordinary places. Sarah Jensen navigated the storm with practiced professionalism, overseeing crucial aspects of the federal case, while simultaneously tending to her daughter's recovery. Lily, thankfully, was discharged from the hospital after a few days. Her physical recovery progressed well, her blood sugar levels stabilized with careful management. The emotional scars, however, ran deeper. Lily became quieter, more watchful. The bright spark in her eyes dimmed slightly, replaced by a hesitant caution. Loud noises made her jump. The memory of the crackling stun gun, the pain, the feeling of betrayal and helplessness, cast a long shadow. But cocooned in her mother's fierce love, supported by the genuine concern of her friends Mia and Chloe, and bolstered by an unexpected outpouring of kindness from many Harmony Creek residents horrified by Carol's actions, Lily's innate resilience slowly began to surface. Therapy helped process the trauma. Slowly, tentatively, she began to reclaim her space. The legal gears ground forward, inexorable and methodical. Faced with the mountain of irrefutable evidence, the eyewitness testimony of the children, Mr. Henderson's corroboration, Lily's detailed medical records documenting the severe hypoglycemic event triggered by the assault, the arsenal recovered from her home, her own incriminating digital footprint, Carol Miller's defense attorney painted a bleak picture. A trial, he advised, would be an unmitigated disaster, likely resulting in conviction on all counts and the maximum possible sentence, including the terrorism enhancement. After weeks of negotiation, Carol Miller accepted a plea agreement. She pleaded guilty to the primary hate crime charge, assault resulting in bodily injury on a minor, committed because of disability, and one count of unlawful possession of an unregistered firearm. The domestic terrorism enhancement, while formally held in abeyance as part of the negotiated plea, heavily influenced the sentencing guidelines and was explicitly referenced by the prosecution and the judge as context for her motivations. The sentencing hearing took place in the hushed, imposing formality of a federal courtroom. Carol Miller, visibly diminished, stood before the judge. Sarah and Lily were present, sitting quietly in the gallery, providing Lily the agency to see the process through, if she chose. The judge, after reviewing the case details and victim impact statements, delivered the sentence. His voice was stern, resonating with moral authority. He sentenced Carol Miller to 15 years in federal prison. Addressing her directly, the judge spoke with cold clarity. Ms. Miller, you occupied a minor position of trust within your community. You twisted that authority, fueled by prejudice and intolerance, into a weapon. You targeted a vulnerable child, mocking her medical condition before committing an act of senseless violence. Your obsession with trivial rules served as a convenient mask for a dangerous and hateful ideology. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in the silent room. You chose to enforce your distorted worldview not with reason or dialogue, but with electricity and fear. You caused profound physical harm and deep, lasting emotional trauma. Let this sentence stand as an unequivocal message. Hate, intolerance, and violence, particularly when directed at individuals based on their disability or any other protected characteristic, have absolutely no place in a civilized society. Such actions are not merely morally reprehensible. They are federal crimes that will be prosecuted and punished to the fullest extent of the law. As a final component of the judgment, significant assets belonging to Carol Miller were subjected to federal asset forfeiture. The government successfully argued that funds derived from online solicitations connected to her extremist activities, along with equity in her home, the very symbol of her oppressive reign in Harmony Creek, were proceeds linked to her criminal conduct. The house was seized. The recovered funds were directed towards victim restitution programs, with a substantial portion placed into a dedicated trust for Lily Jensen's future medical care, therapy, and educational needs. Carol Miller's downfall acted as a painful but necessary catharsis for Harmony Creek. The HOA was fundamentally restructured. An entirely new board was elected, comprised of residents who openly prioritized community engagement, communication, and reasonable governance over punitive enforcement and rigid conformity. The infamous binder of covenants, conditions, and restrictions underwent a thorough review. Outdated, ambiguous, and potentially discriminatory clauses, including several that bore eerie resemblance to Carol's drafted proposals, were struck out. A new ethos, one focused on neighborliness and mutual respect, began, tentatively at first, to take root. Small changes signaled a larger shift. The Garcias, Sarah and Lily's kind but previously cautious next-door neighbors, became close family friends. Their children's laughter now echoed freely across adjoining backyards, devoid of the old fear of a sudden citation for stray toys. Old Mr. Henderson, long harassed by Carol for his beloved bird feeders allegedly attracting undesirable elements, now tended his garden in undisturbed peace. The oppressive weight of constant scrutiny finally lifted. Someone quietly hung a small, tasteful rainbow flag beneath the American flag on the clubhouse flagpole, a subtle but powerful symbol of inclusivity, unthinkable under Carol's regime. The case, officially docketed as United States versus Carol Miller, became notable in legal and law enforcement circles. It served as a stark case study analyzed by civil rights organizations and taught at law enforcement academies, including Quantico, where Sarah Jensen occasionally used carefully anonymized details. It highlighted the critical nexus between vigilant civil rights enforcement, meticulous hate crime investigation, and the detection of potential domestic extremism hiding beneath the mundane surface of suburban life. It was a chilling reminder that dangerous ideologies could fester anywhere. Life in Harmony Creek settled into a new rhythm, a more genuine harmony than the artificial conformity Carol had tried to impose. The late afternoon sun still slanted across the manicured lawns, but the air felt lighter. The oppressive tension, the constant low-grade anxiety, had dissipated, replaced by the everyday sounds of a community healing. Children playing, neighbors chatting amiably over fences, the quiet hum of ordinary, peaceful life. Sarah often found herself watching Lily, now 12, laughing with Mia and Chloe near the community pool, the rainbow flag fluttering gently nearby. Lily's insulin pump remained her constant companion, discreetly managing her health, no longer a source of potential conflict or shame, but simply an integrated part of her vibrant life. Lily looked up, her eyes meeting her mother's across the lawn. She waved, a wide, unrestrained smile lighting up her face. It was a smile Sarah hadn't seen often enough in the past year, bright, carefree, full of resilience. In that smile, Sarah saw more than just her daughter's recovery. She saw the enduring strength of the human spirit. She saw the quiet triumph of community cohesion over corrosive intolerance. And she felt the profound, bone-deep relief that justice, though often a slow, arduous, and painful path, had ultimately, decisively, prevailed. The ghost of Karen had been exorcised from Harmony Creek, leaving behind scars and bitter lessons, but also, finally, the fertile ground for genuine peace to grow.